Over a single weekend in February of 2003, a small crew of thieves broke into a vault buried 2 floors beneath the streets of Antwerp, Belgium, protected by 10 separate layers of security, and walked away with somewhere between $100 million and $400 million in diamonds, gold, and other valuables. To this day, nobody knows the exact final total because some of the safety deposit boxes that were emptied belonged to people who never came forward to report what was inside them. It remains one of the largest and most audacious jewel heists in modern history, and it happened inside a building the diamond industry had spent decades insisting was unbreakable. To understand why this particular vault was such an extraordinary target, you have to understand Antwerp itself. For centuries, the city has served as the beating heart of the global diamond trade, home to a compact, densely guarded neighborhood known as the Diamond District, where an enormous share of the world's rough and polished diamonds pass through on their way to markets everywhere else. At the center of that district sat the Antwerp World Diamond Center, a building that housed hundreds of individual safety deposit boxes rented out to diamond dealers, jewelers, and wealthy private clients who trusted its vault with some of the most valuable small objects on Earth. That vault sat 2 floors underground, secured behind measures that read on paper like something out of a heist film rather than a real building. A vault door weighing several tons, a lock mechanism requiring a code that changed regularly, motion detectors, heat detectors, a seismic sensor sensitive enough to register vibration from drilling, infrared beams crisscrossing the room, and a magnetic field designed to trigger an alarm the moment it was disrupted. Combined, the building's own promotional materials had once boasted, these systems made the vault essentially impossible to breach without immediate detection. The man who would eventually earn credit as the architect of the heist was Leonardo Notarbartolo, an Italian national who had spent years quietly building a legitimate-seeming presence inside the very building he intended to rob. Notarbartolo rented office space inside the Antwerp World Diamond Center years before the theft, posing as a diamond merchant, giving himself a plausible reason to move freely through the building, learn its layout intimately, and observe its security procedures up close, day after day, without raising any suspicion at all. It was one of the most patient long cons in the history of organized theft, executed not over weeks or months, but across roughly 3 years of careful positioning. During that time, Notarbartolo and his associates, a small crew of Italian nationals who together became known in the press as the School of Turin, a nod to the group's origins and to the almost academic precision with which they approached the job, studied the vault's defenses methodically, gathering information through observation, through small technical tricks, and reportedly through the assistance of a security expert brought in to help defeat the specific systems protecting the room. They studied the vault's alarm architecture in enough detail to understand precisely how each layer worked and, more importantly, how each layer might be defeated or bypassed without triggering a response. Their solution to the vault's motion, heat, and light detection systems turned out to be almost absurdly simple in concept, even if it required real technical sophistication to execute. Rather than trying to disable the sensors electronically, which risked immediate detection, they found a way to fool them physically, reportedly using hairspray to coat the light beam sensors, along with other basic materials that interfered with the equipment's ability to register their movement through the room, all while leaving the systems themselves technically switched on and functioning normally from the perspective of anyone monitoring them remotely. The magnetic field sensor, designed to detect any disruption to the vault door itself, was defeated through a method the crew had apparently studied and rehearsed extensively beforehand, allowing them to open the vault door without ever triggering the alarm connected to it. And the seismic sensor, sensitive enough in theory to detect drilling vibration anywhere in the vault, simply failed to register anything unusual during the break-in at all, a detail that later became one of the most scrutinized and debated failures in the entire case, since it represented the one layer of security that should have made the whole operation impossible regardless of how well the other systems were fooled. The heist itself took place over the weekend of February 15th and 16th, 2003, timed deliberately for a period when the building would be empty and any evidence of an intrusion might go unnoticed for as long as possible. Using a duplicate key to access the vault area, along with the various methods they developed to defeat each security layer, the crew opened somewhere between 100 and 200 individual safety deposit boxes inside the vault, emptying them of diamonds, gold, jewelry, and other valuables that dealers and clients had trusted to the building's supposedly impenetrable protection. When employees arrived the following Monday morning, they discovered the vault door open and boxes scattered and emptied throughout the room, along with a scene almost cinematic in its aftermath, discarded tools, wrappers, and debris left behind by a crew that, by that point, believed they'd already gotten away clean. The scale of the theft was almost impossible to calculate precisely, in part because Belgium's safety deposit regulations at the time didn't require box holders to declare the specific contents or value of what they stored, meaning investigators were left largely dependent on victims voluntarily coming forward to report what had been taken, a request some declined entirely, whether out of concern over taxes, insurance complications, or simply a desire to keep the full extent of their private holdings out of public record. Estimates of the total haul have varied wildly ever since, ranging from roughly $100 million on the conservative end to figures approaching $400 million by some accounts, a discrepancy that itself speaks to how unusual this particular crime was compared to almost any other theft of similar scale, where the value of what was stolen is typically far easier to pin down. The investigation that followed moved quickly toward its central break, though not through any particularly high-tech forensic work. Belgian police, searching the surrounding area for any trace of the crew, discovered a bag of discarded evidence in the woods near a highway outside Antwerp, seemingly left behind in haste by the fleeing thieves. Inside were half-eaten sandwiches, discarded surveillance notes, and crucially, a piece of paper containing a receipt that led investigators directly toward Leonardo Notarbartolo. Notarbartolo was arrested within weeks of the theft, along with several associates connected to the crew. He was eventually convicted and sentenced to a decade in prison for his role in the heist, though he served considerably less time before his release. Throughout the investigation, and in years since, Notarbartolo has offered a shifting, often theatrical account of his own involvement, at various points suggesting the entire operation had actually been a setup orchestrated by someone else entirely, and that the true scale of what was taken from the vault was inflated by dishonest box holders looking to claim inflated insurance payouts for items that were never actually stolen at all. Investigators and prosecutors largely dismissed these claims as self-serving, though the ambiguity Notarbartolo introduced around the case's true scale has never been fully resolved. What has never been resolved at all, in fact, is where the vast majority of the stolen diamonds and gold actually ended up. Despite Notarbartolo's conviction, almost none of the stolen property was ever recovered. Diamonds, unlike cash or most other stolen valuables, are notoriously difficult to trace once removed from their original setting, since a stone can be recut, reshaped, and resold in a completely different form within days of a theft, effectively erasing any physical evidence connecting it back to its original source. Investigators have long suspected that much of what was taken from the Antwerp vault was broken down, recut, and moved into legitimate markets through international networks specializing in exactly this kind of laundering, making full recovery essentially impossible from the moment the vault door was first opened. The case also raised uncomfortable questions for the diamond industry itself, and for the Antwerp World Diamond Center in particular, whose reputation for offering the most secure private storage available anywhere in the world took a significant hit in the aftermath. If a vault protected by 10 distinct layers of security, housed inside a building at the very center of a neighborhood saturated with private security, police presence, and surveillance cameras, could be defeated by a small crew working with little more than patience, careful study, and some remarkably low-tech countermeasures, the incident forced a broader reckoning within the industry about just how much confidence institutions and private clients alike should place in even the most elaborate security systems available. In the years since, the Antwerp diamond heist has taken on something of a legendary status within both the true crime community and the broader diamond trade itself, frequently cited as one of the cleverest and most meticulously planned thefts ever executed, precisely because of how thoroughly it exposed the gap between a security system's theoretical strength on paper and its actual vulnerability in practice. The case has been the subject of documentaries, books, and dramatized retellings, each one drawn to the same central, almost irresistible detail: a crew of thieves who spent years quietly embedding themselves inside the very institution they intended to rob, patient enough to wait for exactly the right moment, and skilled enough, in the end, to walk away with a fortune that has never been fully recovered or fully accounted for. Notarbartolo himself has continued, in interviews given long after his release from prison, to maintain an air of calculated ambiguity about the case, at times seeming almost to enjoy the mythology that's grown up around the heist, without ever providing a full, verified account of exactly how much was taken or precisely where it went. Whether that ambiguity reflects genuine uncertainty, strategic self-protection, or simply the practiced evasiveness of a man who spent years successfully deceiving one of the most security-conscious institutions in the world, is something that, like so much of this case, has never been definitively settled. More than 2 decades later, the vault beneath the Antwerp World Diamond Center remains in operation, its security systems significantly upgraded in the aftermath of the theft, a permanent reminder within the building itself of exactly how badly things once went wrong. The stolen diamonds, wherever they ended up, have almost certainly long since been recut, reset, and resold many times over, indistinguishable now from any other stone on the market, their origin erased as thoroughly as if they had simply vanished into the earth from which they were originally pulled. And the man who orchestrated one of the most patient, meticulously planned thefts in modern history walked out of prison years ago, leaving behind a case that, despite a conviction, still carries more open questions than closed ones about how much was really taken, where it actually went, and whether the full story of the Antwerp diamond heist has ever really been told at all.